Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to the webinar Independent Testing Remote Team Risks, hosted by QATestLab. Thanks for joining us today. QATestLab continues a series of live webinars dedicated to QA and testing. We are talking about specifics of software testing, QA team management, test approaches, and tools. We are analyzing tricky cases on real projects. Besides, we will tell at what stage of software development testing should be implemented and how to select a proper provider of QA services to build long-term business relations. We will try to prepare the most helpful and interesting topics for you to understand nuances of software testing and avoid any pitfalls. If you have any suggestions about the webinar topic, please write to marketing@QATestLab.com. Before we start today's webinar, let me please briefly explain how to use the GoToWebinar software. On the right side of the screen, you will see the control panel. Feel free to ask questions to organizers during a webinar using the chat or questions pane in the control panel. We are recording this webinar, and a link to the record will be provided by email within a couple of days after the webinar. Today, I will be your speaker. My name is Angelina Friz, and I am a program manager in QATestLab. In order to receive an objective evaluation of software quality and ensure a successful release of solutions to the market, the companies use the services of independent testing providers. Despite providing a number of benefits, the procedure of independent quality assessment hides several pitfalls that can affect the project team productivity and complicate the workflow. Some of the pitfalls are connected with remote QA team. What are the disadvantages of remote QA team? I know them well, and today I'm going to share with you my experience of how to minimize the risks of distance collaboration and turn them into benefits for your project. Let's first review the advantages of independent testing to better see what is on the scale. So the main benefit of independent testing is an objective and unbiased quality assessment, as testers are not involved in the development activities. QA specialists are able to review various aspects of the system under test from a quite different perspective. Testers do not have any assumptions of how the system should operate. They just check the functionality and document the results. Also, the providers of independent testing have a wide range of different devices, technologies, and tools needed for ensuring a wide test coverage. Actually, it's a must for providers to be well equipped, as testing is their main activity. But for the customer, especially if it's a startup, to buy different mobile devices and tools just for testing stage is not a rational approach. Besides, there is a number of browsers and operating systems, including their versions, that should be prepared for software testing. The preparation for testing and configuration setting may take much time. Independent testing saves time and reduces expenses. Rather often, a separate budget is determined for testing activities. In case of independent QA provider, the customer is able to track and control how the budget is distributed. Apart from that, several business models are available. For example, time and material, dedicated team, fixed price, software testing as a service, and many others. The customer can select the proper model that will satisfy his interests. Vendors, in their return, will ensure the effective execution of the project, and they actually do not have a choice. It's their main business activity. Poor quality means bad reputation, thus companies fail. Independent testing providers have own team management that coordinates and monitors all testers' activities. So a customer does not have to hire additional managers to engage own ones for leading QA team. It's obvious that a cohesive and solid team will ensure better results. Testers freely report all results of check-in procedure to their managers, who provide the results in a convenient form to the senior management from the customer's side. Sure, this is not a full list of advantages of independent testing, but today our main task is to review its disadvantages and learn how to avoid them. So let's proceed to the common disadvantages of distance collaboration. First, I will enumerate them, and then we will review them more detailed. So the pitfalls of remote QA team are poor communication, lack of process transparency, absence of trust within project team, cultural barriers, language barriers. This is the reverse side of distant collaboration with QA team, but everything is not so bad as it may seem. Otherwise, there will be no remote or distributed teams at all. Fortunately, it's not true. Based on my experience in managing different projects, I can definitely say that all troubles start with improper communication and lack of information sharing. This is the basis for all other pitfalls of distance collaboration. Communication is like an oxygen for a business. It's impossible to ensure an effective and flawless collaboration without data exchange. Office-based teams always interact with each other during usual meetings, brainstorming, face-to-face meets, during quick chats at lunch, meeting in the break room. They ask for and share information all the time. And it's easy for them to communicate as they are in one building and see each other every day. Almost in any moment, you can go to your colleague to clarify or get a certain information. In the majority of cases, synchronous communication is traditional for the office-based team. But we have a quite different situation in terms of distant collaboration, when the team members can be in 1,000 miles away from each other. Three types of communication are obligatory for remote teams to ensure a smooth workflow. Asynchronous communication is specific for remote teams across different time zones. As it is clear from the name, that is not a live and synchronized communication. It doesn't take place in real life. This is like back and forth information exchange, usually in a written form that depends on the schedule of both sides, customer and vendor. Such communication is possible due to a number of messaging software and task management systems. For example, Slack, Trello, Skype, Basecamp, GitHub. So one person leaves a note or comment to the task or in a channel, and the other person responds it at a time convenient for him, in case of multiple time zones. Also, you can communicate by email, but asynchronous communication is not suitable for time-sensitive issues. In case of emergency and critical issues, it's better to have a separate channel for the most critical tasks. If the team does not answer in 10 minutes or so, then the side that has detected the problem should call the person or people responsible in such a situation. That can be project manager or tech lead. We also apply such an approach in our work. The actions for such cases should be obligatory determined. Then comes synchronous communication, when two or more people agree to communicate in real life using particular communication channel. The old-fashioned way of synchronous communication is a phone call, but nowadays it is not widely used because of different modern technologies. Due to synchronous communication, you can get an immediate answer, quickly clarify certain things, discuss some issues, and get active feedback. It's a very effective and convenient way for information exchange. Synchronous communication happens via video calls, live chats, video meetings, or online voice calls. The third type is interpersonal communication. In case of long-term projects, this type of communication is a must. You should interact with your remote team face-to-face at least a couple of times a year. This can be different conferences, workshops, events for fun, and many other activities that will help to form stronger relationships, resolve some problems, and reinforce team spirit. To establish constant communication, I follow several useful recommendations. I hope you will find them helpful too. The variety of communication channel is not always a benefit. Sometimes project team members may be unsure where to send some data and start to duplicate it everywhere. This causes time wasted and miscommunication. You should distribute each channel according to communication purpose. For example, Skype for live chats, Slack for messages. Have your communication well arranged and planned. In case of different time zones, it's very important to be aware of working hours of both sides, customer and remote team. While arranging call or meetings, always mind the difference in time. There are special portals that compare time in different corners of the world. Also, you can use task management tools or share online calendars where the time off is pointed. Office-based team members spend much time working as well as communicating during dinner, as we discussed before. They play table tennis or chatting in the kitchen near coffee machine or water cooler. The same should be with the remote team. Try to create a virtual table tennis where you can talk about different topics not related to the work. It can be a separate chat where you send funny videos or images. There should be an online space for sharing content just for fun. This will decrease the feeling of distance between the project team and members. On one of the projects that I managed, the development team sent us funny pictures about estimations and software development procedure. They did it from time to time, so they did not disturb us from the work. Vice versa, it helped us to establish close and friendly relationships. Do not be afraid to reward good work publicly. If the customer does not recognize the accomplishments of the team, especially a remote one, then its members lose motivation and feeling of importance of their contributions. Even several words are enough to energize the team. Mind that. While communicating with other people, we take into account body language, intonation, and other signals that can show us the interlocutor's mood or attitude to a certain thing. Written communication can hide a number of pitfalls. The same phrase can be interpreted in several different ways. You can use smileys or emojis to clarify the tone of the message. I always use these tips and should say that they are really effective. Now, let's come back to the pitfalls of remote QA team. The transparency of processes and activities reduces problems, helps to avoid unexpected spending, and leads to time saving. How to ensure the transparency? You should analyze, review, and determine all specific areas of the development, testing, and maintaining of the project. Then distribute all zones of responsibility among management of both sides. The full and clear understanding of your zone of responsibility helps to avoid troubles and you will not miss any important thing. But the boundaries of zones of responsibility for both sides can be merged a little. Then you should together specify your actions in case of any problem. For example, testers and developers cooperate closely. Independent testers provide the development team with the results of quality evaluation. But at the same time, to execute a certain check-in type, QA team should be aware of specifics of system architecture and principles of its operation. The developers know the peculiarities of expected system behavior, while testers help to ensure it. It's important to understand the role of independent QAs in the development team. Of course, the independent factor should be kept, but while sharing the responsibilities, both QA and dev teams should not conduct the tasks that conflict with their zone of responsibility. Remember that you are not competing with each other. You are the members of one team that strives to gain common goal, ensure an effective release of the successful product. For example, on the majority of projects that I've managed, when testers have checked the product user interface or perform localization testing and provide the dev team with a test result, developers ask testers to fix these non-critical content issues as they are not connected with the source code, and developer will have more time for removing critical bugs with highest priority. Of course, bugs in content or some translation errors are not severe. It is not developers' work to fix them, right? But actually, there are two schools of thoughts. According to the first one, the issues that do not require any changes in the code level can be fixed by testers. And according to the second school, QA specialists are responsible only for detecting issues, improving the software quality, and making sure that their recommendations were taken into account. In other words, that all discovered bugs are fixed without any consequences. The range of testers' responsibilities does not include bugs fixing, even the minor ones. Also, even small changes in content and product user interface cause more critical ones. Surely, in an ideal world, there would be a clear and strict differentiation of tasks and zone responsibilities. But in case of close deadline, testers can be engaged in bug fixing. One most sticky area that causes the conflict of interest between remote testers and developers team is the preparation of unit test suites. It's obvious that the creation and execution of unit tests is the responsibility of development team, not QA one. Usually, testers provide the developers with inputs required for writing unit test cases. Tester can help dev team to define the parameters of exit criteria for the product build to be ready for testing. But sometimes QA team designs unit tests. It's an example of trespassing into the developer's boundary of responsibilities. To ensure process transparency, you should create a central hub where every member of the project team can get and share important information or task updates, ask questions, and get required answers. You should make sure that everyone will be heard. Create a centralized virtual office. It's very effective to have one central hub for communications. It will be like a unique workspace where a remote team will also take part. Ensure easy way of document sharing. This process should be centralized. All project documentation will be stored in one central location. For example, you can use for this purpose Dropbox. Every team member will have access and can easily get the required information or add a new one. Also, you can add here the contact details of all project team members. Always keep in touch with your team. You should encourage interactions on a regular basis. This can be voice calls, messages, or letters. Of course, if the team is too large, then it's better to send newsletters as you will not have enough time to communicate with each member and provide updates. Encourage feedback from your team. You can use related applications or execute a kind of anonymous survey on the level of management, for example, workflow, business aspects, or so. You should understand the attitudes of your team. Also, you should create an open atmosphere to ensure trust-based relationships within the project team members. As you may know, productive cooperation is impossible without relationships built on trust. It is rather difficult to establish open and trustful relations within the office-based team. And when you work with a remote one, the tasks become even more complicated as you collaborate with people you probably will never meet in person. We form our first attitude to a person starting from the first glance and first meeting. In case of distance collaboration in a virtual environment, the first message and video call from our first impression. Be very careful about what you say and how you speak. Do not spoil your first impression. Despite the fact that people are used not to trust everyone except their family members, different researchers have shown that trust can be earned and maintained even between virtual teams. There are several practices that help to establish trustful relationships. So I'm ready to share with you the solution 1. The success of software development depends on the effort of each specialist engaged in the process. And all members of the project team realize that they are in the same boat together, and the failure of one will cause the fail of all the rest. So the team from the customer side as well as remote QAs, each other by default, they trust each other. They initially are open for cooperation. This is called swift trust, a positive and open atmosphere. And it is obvious that the members of remote QA team should work on the maintenance of atmosphere of swift trust. First of all, they should prove their competence, skills, and experience as at the very beginning, as the customer has already given independent testers a credit of trust. Then the managers of remote QA team should make sure that the testers have a proper and clear vision of project purposes and objectives. This will help to hold the team together and develop more lasting relationships built on interpersonal trust. There is a widespread misbelief that in remote, or we can say virtual teams, members are usually focused only on specialist responsibilities and activities, but not on his/her personal characteristics. They do not review them as individuals, but this is wrong. While looking through CV or resume, people do read the section about personal details that include hobby and personal interests. Why do they do so? Because people want to form the vision of an individual and find whether they have something common. If you do not like somebody, you will not reach swift trust atmosphere. In the majority of cases, people tend to trust others who are similar to them to some extent. They believe that in such a case, those individuals will react to different situations in a similar way. Managers or remote teams should be proactive and implement special techniques and practices that will help to establish trust-based relationships. Here, communication plays an important role. The essence of good communication is not quantity but quality. You can talk all day long with the development team, but at the end you understand nothing at all. A number of emails and constant meetings will not always be informative. They will only bother and interrupt every member of the project team, thus waste the precious time. This will cause the loss of interpersonal trust. Mind the quality of your communications. One more key aspect of fruitful communication is its predictability. According to different researchers, teams with the lack of trust tend to have unpredictable communication patterns that cause delays and misconceptions during the workflow. For example, you detect a severe issue that blocked the whole system functionality. You open it and notify the development team about the bug, but in 2 days you still receive no answer. During these 2 days, you were trying to find out what is the matter. You wrote other team members, call managers, etc. This is a typical situation for irregular and unpredictable communications. In comparison to this, in high trusted teams, if someone is unavailable for a certain period of time, he will obligatorily inform other team members about that, and his areas of responsibility will be temporarily assigned to another person. In a traditional office-based workplace, there is a centralized power structure. You definitely know whom you are reporting to. Every department has its own leader, but in case of a virtual environment, if the relationships between project team members are built on trust, then power is shifted among the members according to the project state. Let's imagine at the very beginning of the project, at the stage of market analysis, the marketing department and business analysts will have the core power. But during the development phase, they are not responsible for any activities. They do not have the required experience and skills for code writing. Of course, the leader of the whole project is the product owner or customer for both traditional and virtual environments. But what differs is the leader's role. In the office-based workflow, the project leader usually has command and control mindset. And in case of remote teams, the leader rather monitors and mentors. This will ensure trust-based relationships. Next disadvantage of distance cooperation is cultural and language barriers. Misunderstanding and misconceptions can be caused by language barriers. As we all know, English is one of the world languages, and in the IT world, it's very popular. But not every specialist knows English well. I can say this for sure. To avoid miscommunication for the remote team side, being a manager of QA team, I regularly check the level of English of every team member. It is a must. We hold English classes to improve the level of language in our company. Both customers and remote teams should not use slang or dialects that can confuse other team members. It's very effective to visualize what you are saying. For example, add screenshots, make tables or diagrams. This will ensure a proper understanding. Actually, nowadays, different translation software and technologies can help to easily avoid language barrier, but still you should mind culturally specific language barrier. For instance, to thank in advance is unacceptable for some cultures. As you can understand, even if people speak the same language, that does not necessarily mean that they fully understand each other. There are many communication pitfalls connected with cultural differences. Some common cultural conflicts are connected with the following aspects of work. Strict management hierarchy that makes it difficult to get real and honest feedback about work. The representatives of such cultures will never correct you even if you are wrong. and it's not because they do not want to, but it's because because of their native culture. For example, to never disagree with an elder person or with a man. The difference in notions of agreements and commitments. The representatives of some cultures tend to detailization and strictly follow certain approaches, while other countries are more flexible. Result or process orientation. Some countries are more oriented on the result without keeping the detailed description of activities and following prepared algorithms and protocols. Attitude to deadlines and appointments. Some cultures are very strict in everything concerning time and schedules, while others are more flexible. Direct spoken character. Some cultures are very direct. They will not try to avoid conflicts, while others are always focused on saving face and preventing any difficulties if their partner is wrong. To create a healthy atmosphere, you should be aware of cultural specifics of your remote team members. Do not forget to read and learn about cultural diversity to be ready to prevent or solve conflicts. Identify what cultural issues can affect the productive workflow and what ones can mismatch to the work culture acceptable on the project. Determine what cultural differences can be accommodated to the working conditions and accommodation of which ones is not acceptable. And we will hope that at least one side is rather flexible. While hiring the representatives of other cultures, mind their emotional intelligence and ability for empathy. Also, it's very useful to create a team profile and share it with all team members. Cooperation with remote work opens new opportunities, and in order to enjoy all of them, you should use the provided practices and take into account the peculiarities of distance collaboration. I hope the information was new and helpful for you. That's all information for me for today. I noticed some questions during the webinar, and we still have a couple of minutes to answer these questions. So let me check. So the first question was, what is the biggest time difference was with the customer in your experience? Thank you for this question. Let me remember. So the biggest time difference that I remember was 10 hours ahead. We had only about 1 hour per day to have online and live communication. But it taught us how to plan our work and questions for development team to be very effective and self-sustained. So the next question is how to be sure that you understand each other properly in a voice meeting if both parties are non-native English speakers. It's a wide and common problem to understand each other if you are not native English speakers, but the best practice that we used is to have written or short summary of all main details of this talk, and after the talk you can change with each other this summary, and it will guarantee that no misunderstanding left after this discussion. If you have any questions left, please contact us using the contact details on the slide, and we will answer them soon. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful day or evening.